driving Formula One cars, being the ruler of your own small universe, building cities, all these type of things, no one is going to do. Now, you needn't throw yourself into it wholeheartedly. You can dip in and out. You can do all those, whichever way you take it. But on a level, you're never going to do that in real life.
Our starting point here today is an article in the Observer magazine, The Cover Story, by Tom Bissell, who quite engagingly recounts his disappearance into computer games. He also makes a case for the beguiling power of games. Does anybody have an experience of playing games where it stimulates emotional response?
The Longest Journey and the sequel Dreamfall, these two beautiful single-player games created by a company called Funcom, they were purely telling you a story, a very linear story that you were experiencing, but you're in control. And I remember there's a particular moment in the sequel, in Dreamfall, a scene in which you play a 19-year-old girl who is having to talk a child who is already technically dead into letting go of life. And I mean, it's such an extraordinary and beautiful moment, and the graphics were wonderful, and the music was great. All these aesthetics were in place, but what it really came down to was just some brilliant writing. And in that moment, I chose what to say, but I was really sitting back and watching this amazing moment that just brought me absolutely to tears.
I think that's the same for movies, though, because you have to engage with the movie. You have to sit there and watch it. You could just get up and walk away, and then it wouldn't have the effect on you anymore. You're just not mechanically doing something.
If I sat back and took my hands away from the controls, nothing would happen. The whole game would come to a standstill. It's only because of my engagement that any of these events occur.
So we get an emotional stimulation from playing a game, but this is the sort of emotions that we would get from interacting with other people, and largely are about interacting with other people.
I remember I was sitting in an art gallery, and there were about 20 of us, and we're all on our PSP, and everyone was deadly silent because we're playing this game, but together. And like the art gallery owner came in, he was like, "Oh, what's happened to my space? It's become about video games, and look what's happening, and this isn't what I thought, this is what I wanted this space to be about." And I went over and I talked to him and I said, "What you don't understand is each of these people is communicating with each other, but they're just not doing it verbally. When one person stands beside another person and takes out his sword to protect him so he can take his potion, that's a form of communication. He's saying something to him."
There's nothing quite like the satisfaction of going up against another human in a fight or drive or anything. You're never going to do that in real life. And when you know it's not a computer-controlled character, there's a frisson in victory that's like nothing else.
I want to go a bit tabloid though, and I want to know what is dangerous about games.
There is this idea that games are dangerously seductive, whereas I think behind that is the fear that people are simply too weak to handle them, that there's something in us which is just not able to resist these sort of seductions of this other world designed for pleasure.
I don't think there's anything dangerous about games, absolutely at all. They're like any other media, they're like film, TV, anything like that. If you choose, you take from what you want. Now, if I'm not buying the mass murderer comes from playing GTA.
I don't think there's ever been a study that's managed to show a link between game violence and real-world violence. And I think children have consistently been very, very clear about fantasy and reality and being able to discern the difference between the two.
With games, there are unique issues to do with time. It's possible to give... Rotting for 24 hours a day in front of the television is pretty dreadful. Doing nothing but reading books doesn't help you fit into society. But I think games, because of their interactivity, are on another level of appealing.
I am a bit concerned about the way some MMOs like Warcraft are made, that they are made with the strong desire to be a time sink to keep people locked in. It's not actually fulfilling, it's just about keeping pace. I think there needs to be more discretion with games like that are about managing your personal advancement, to make sure you're not doing it in this completely empty way, that there's something worthwhile and a sort of adventure and imagination thing comes out of it, rather than just watching a number go up.
I see people watch the first episode of 24 and they have the box set, and then they just watch the whole series. Yeah. That's 24 hours in one session on a TV program. I see people go to the pub and have a pint, and then they get lost, and it's 10 hours later.
They can become a path to change people, especially in an online game when you're part of a community. People who are suffering from depression, who are playing games as a refuge, they can become paths towards action. Games have an enormous therapeutic potential. Virtual worlds have an enormous therapeutic potential.
I know, hundreds of people whose lives are terrible, specifically that I know within my area of influence. So surely everybody does. For which those people, gaming is the best thing that they do, the thing that they spend the time the most enjoying in life. And if you kids who are going through terrible lives at home, abusive parents, they get beaten up at school. Staying at home, sitting in your room, just playing video games, like for you to see that as something bad, it's not bad. You know, jet fighter pilots, they play video games to stay sharp. Surgeons play video games to keep their hands in check. It's not something I think we need to feel that we need to regulate. It's something that isn't bad, and what needs to change is not so much, it's just that perception of it as being a waste of time when it's not, and it is significantly better than a lot of other things that people could be doing.